gives us a perspective. It gives them the help they need, and it's all good for everyone. So we do thank you. So it's very, like I said, it was very fulfilling for everyone. We were all honored to be there on y'all's behalf. Although we did not finish the homes, our plan next year is potentially, if we can work it out, to go and finish the homes that we started if they have not finished them. A lot of times these people may take a year or two to get more building materials, so it'll sit where it's at for 6 months or whatever. So our goal, if they're not finished, is to go back next year and finish these houses that were left incomplete. So, but the good news and kind of the main point of when we go is throughout all the ministry that Jane and Melissa and all the others did at the schools, plus some of the stuff at the church, we had on average, I think it was about 130 children that made professions of faith. So it was a great time. I think it's one of the largest harvests that we've ever seen on our trip. So it was great. We had a great team that went. It just worked out great. We had a little bit of adversity, but we made it through, and God did what He was going to do. So we do appreciate it. As I said, we couldn't go without you guys. So I do thank you. I've kind of thrown in my piece, kind of, sort of, as I've gone through, and I guess I'll try to put this back on cycle if I can figure out how to make it auto forward. Okay, now I don't know what it's doing. I guess I won't do that. Anyway, so I'll kind of give you my feeling about going. I kind of say the same thing every year. You know, it's awesome to go and see your old friends and all that kind of stuff. But I love working on the church and I love doing the things, but going into the community, that's been the most impactful thing that I've ever done. In young Brian's house, when his mom was still alive, pouring that floor and watching her cry just to not have mud rushing through her house, and just something that simple, you know what I mean? It really does touch you. And the house that we poured, I think Dave will probably talk about it. It was a big selling point for him this year when we were leaving for next year. Was the house we poured was a community leader in the church, and they do a lot of work in the church with the youth, and they've been trying for like 3 years to build this house, and you know, it just kind of worked out that we had our hand in it, and then it worked out that we were able to get more blocks because we had extra team money, and then some of the people in the group said, well, how much is block? We'll throw 20 together, and we got another 100 together, so we were able to get them from 100 block to 300 block, and they only need 800 block to finish. So they got a good ways to it. So it's just, I mean, they're so grateful for everything. So, but I mean, it's just great to have the opportunity to go. And if you are interested in going, you know, we'll probably go next year to do more construction. Even if you can't do construction, you know, there's always things that you can do at other places. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to, I guess, Marvin. You want to come up next and talk, or you want to go? You want Melissa to go? Okay. You stand up there, or you want the mic? You want the mic?
But for most of y'all know, this was my third time going, and even though I've been there before, it's a regeneration every time I go, especially with the services down there. You can feel the Holy Spirit moving in the services down there, especially with the tamarines. They got it going. They move. I mean, they're just into it, and the little children are into it. And what's amazing to me is that we pass the offering around, but they keep a basket up front, and they're teaching their kids, I mean, at maybe 5 years old, leading them up to give whatever they can afford to give. And they're teaching their kids that young to do that, you know. Working out in the community with the houses and all that, I mainly go there to work, and I'm not good with teaching kids and stuff like that. So I like laying the blocks and stuff. Talking with the locals there, And it's just amazing what some of the things they go through. And we take a lot of things for granted here, and it's just amazing,
Good evening, everybody. I will do my best to not cry during my talk, but I will forewarn you it's probably coming. Can't say enough thank yous to every one of you who contributed to helping fund us, to send us down there. I have watched from afar as Chris has been so many years in a row to this community down there in Belize, and so I have lived through his stories, through his connections he's made, through his pictures. So to be there in person, to meet the teams, the people he's been working alongside with, and see that work being done in person, there's no way to describe it to you. I remember when we specifically got there and we went to the church, I just had to go touch the brick. I had to put my hands on that church that they built from the ground up, and it was just overwhelming, the feelings that we had a hand in that, my husband had a hand in that, this church had a hand in that, to give them a great place to worship God. And it's the same God, it's the same God. It was so incredible to see how they worship God, and what they don't have that we are so privileged to have, but how they still were just so thankful, and their gratitude in every little thing they were given. So it was just amazing to be there. We had change of plans. I had really no intentions of anything specific to do down there, but I knew we were doing construction, and I'm not the muscle of the team by no means, but I was gonna jump in and do whatever I could, but then got the opportunity to actually do a lot of school ministry with Miss Jane and her team, and I'm sure she'll tell you all about that. But God works in mysterious ways, right? And so I think it was absolute blessing that I was paired with her, because then I got to lead some of those 130 children that you saw to the Lord. I got to see them say prayers and open their heart and say that's what they wanted to do. And it challenged me so much that we don't really invitations our kids like we should here. That I'm a youth leader. I do participate in Sunday school and Sunday church and for children's church and the Awana program, and it just challenged me that I'm investing in these children every time we get up to teach them, but really checking in with them. Have they made that decision to follow Christ? And just, it challenged me to do that more and more when I'm working with them. So again, I'm going to stop talking because I did really good. Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're next, I've been told. You want to go next?
Good evening. Thank y'all so much. The thing that God changed was on Tuesday afternoon, I knew that I needed a helper, because on Friday they were all going to go on an event. So I had spoken to Mr. Roy, and I had worked on finding a person that I could hire that would work with me at least that Friday and possibly all week, and then they would gain possibly some skills that they'd like to bring back to their church. Well, on Monday we went to this school, had an amazing time. God was really blessing us to be at the school. We got to stay the entire day. I went in almost every classroom after we'd shared the gospel. And Monday afternoon I had skipped lunch, which I needed to skip a lot of meals, and I went to a restaurant. Well, you know, if you step up, when you turn to go back, you need to learn how to step down. Well, I managed to completely miss the step, missed the table, trying to stop myself with my hands, and instead my entire head and neck got slammed on a wooden bench. And I was in a lot of pain. Believe it or not, for 20 to 30 seconds, I was actually knocked senseless. So that facilitated needing permanent babysitters for the rest of the trip. And I got to tell you, they didn't take their hands off me. They didn't take their eyes off me. Everybody was making sure I did not fall again. And I will tell you, it was to this level. We were at this one school, I believe it was on a Wednesday, and the kids were playing. Well, they had beautiful Miss Melissa come out and play with them, and she played Duck, 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 Goose. Well, I sat and watched, and I loved it. I even videoed her doing that. And then later on, when we were getting finished with our tour and teaching, we were coming back down, and one of the little girls ran up and said, "How old are you?" asking Miss Melissa first. And she said, "Well, how old do you think I am?" She said, 20. And I thought, now this is looking good. Let me ask her how old she thinks I am. And I said, "Honey, how old do you think I am?" I think she said 80. She said 80. And I thought, well, you know, Jane, you're acting like an 80-year-old lady where everybody's guarding with you like this. So I didn't know it doesn't matter your age, it's how you work with them. So next time I go, I'm going to play duck, duck, goose so somebody says I'm 20. Y'all got that, right? So it was amazing. I will tell you that there's something that our country, I don't know if we'll ever get to know it again. For someone to stand up in a public school building and share the gospel and give an invitation. And that was the most amazing thing. Every place we taught, there was a lot of response. I can promise you, we probably had 300 or 400 hands easily raised during those days. But what we did was we followed up with proper counseling. Last year I had to do the prayer, the ones you're never supposed to do with little kids, repeat after me. And what was amazing was this time we had enough people, they actually did counseling, and that was the most beautiful part. So I just can't tell you enough. There is an opportunity there. And you have excellent people in your church, and I want to thank you for your prayers. You support Miss Jane and Friends Gospel Ministries, and that was one of the ways we were able to go. I did purchase, on behalf of many different people, we purchased supplies that we could leave there, and I focused on teaching supplies. My goal was to leave a good taste in their mouth when I left, so they would invite us back. So if you would just please continue to pray for the work that's been done. We were sowing seeds. We were watering, and then God allowed us to see his harvest. And there's a lot more harvesting to be done, not just there, but here also. So we just want to ask God to continue to use us. What we began in his name, that he will fulfill it. And we can't wait to see those little children that we had the privilege of seeing raise their hands, getting prayed for, to meet us in heaven. And that was the one thing I kept saying. I hope I get to see you in heaven. And what was really amazing to me, on that Thursday night during church service, there was a young man. I don't know if he was a teenager or a little bit older. That night, he chose to ask Christ to be his Savior. So God is just amazing. I'm just a voice, and just hoping that God will continue to use my voice, even if I can't walk good and keep falling down and all that kind of stuff. But thank you all so much for what you have done through this church, for your prayers. You may not have known it Monday night. If you felt an urge to pray for the mission team, it was because Jane tried to kill herself. and then what was so funny was the doctor told us that night that I needed to stay in bed. And I just looked at him. I said, sir, I hear you, and I respect what you're saying. I said, but I spent a lot of money getting here, and I'm not staying in the bed. And what was so funny was, I think if I'd have stayed in that bed, I'd have been in horrible shape. Now, every morning I'd wake up and the body would go, oh no. And the brain would say, get up, girl. You got to get going to work now. And then as I would teach during the day, it was like when I was teaching, I felt no pain. None. And then later on that night, my body would say, do you see what you did? And my brain said, yep, and we're going to do it again tomorrow too. So there was a lot of conversation going on between the body and the brain. But I know we're sometimes our body is not where it needs to be, but our spirit is where we should be, and that's where we were. I went by the spirit, not by the body. But I can't thank you enough. You don't know it, but originally you guys are the ones that helped me learn about ministry here. And it's a lot accredited to this church. So every place we go, every country we're in, every time it's taught, this church has literally, it's accredited to you because you let me be crazy here a long time ago and nobody kicked me out. And I'm just so thankful to you. So thank you for allowing what God had planned for to happen here, to be in this church. And what I love is you're my home. My mom and dad are at a nice church, and this is the first time in a long time that we've been able to worship together under one house. And when God sees it that my mom and dad have gone to be with him in heaven, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. So thank you so much. I probably took too much time, Pastor Dave, but I really thank y'all. I'll try not to fall next year, though, okay?
All right. Well, I've already talked a little bit, but I'll tell y'all how the trip started for me. Well, first of all, we drove. We decided this year there was 5 of us going. We were going to pile in my little minivan, and with all of our luggage, Miss Jane had like 10 bags. She didn't have 10 bags. She had 8 bags. We didn't have to bring but 5. Yeah, but they weighed enough for 2. But anyway, so we get up there and we decide we're going to park my van. And I sent Chris with my bags because I'm going to park the van over in the parking, and then I've got to get a shuttle and back it back over to the airport. We get checked in and stuff like that. And I get over there, and I can't get Chris to answer his phone. His phone isn't ringing. He doesn't have service. I can't find him. I went to the security check, and I'm getting in the line, and I'm like, they're not going to let Chris go through here with 3 bags. He gets 2 bags, and that's it. You know what I mean? They're not going to let him go through here with my bag. I've got my backpack because it's got my passport and my money and all that, but I need to find my other bag. So I call Melissa, and still she couldn't get it with Chris, and I finally go back looking. I finally found Chris, and I was stressing. You know what I mean? Because I stress until I get through security. You know what I mean? Once I get through security, I'm good. You know what I mean? Just let me get through security. So I got Chris, and me and Chris went through there, and our whole other group is already, they're already sitting out there in the chairs waiting at to get ready to board the plane whenever they open up boarding and stuff like that. And so we get up there, and they're loading all our, we got to undress. So we got to take our belt off, and we got to take all our stuff out of our pockets and pull your cell phone out and pull your computer out, and your computer can't be in a bin with other bags, and your cell phone's got to be in its own bin. It's just a bunch of mess, right? And Chris is behind me, and he gets in his little line, and they're throwing their stuff in, and he goes on through, security and all that stuff. And I'm sitting here waiting. This family in front of me has started putting some of their stuff in bins, and our bins aren't coming. They send them through the little X-ray, and then they bring them back down, and you load them back up, and they send them back, and their bins aren't coming. We're not getting any bins. They've got their stuff in bins. I've got some of my stuff in bins, and we're just waiting. You know what I mean? And the lady's like, I don't know what to tell you. We're not getting any more bins. And I'm like, can we get some of their bins out of their line? No, we can't do that. So what are we going to do without bins? And I'm sitting here. And like I said, our whole group's already through. Just me. I'm on the other side of security by myself. And so finally I'm like, forget this. I grab all my stuff up out of my bins, the bins that I had, because I didn't have enough. So I grab all the stuff out of it. I grab my belt, and I grab my laptop, and my cell phone, and my book bag, and I hold on to my jeans because I'm not wearing my belt. And I go over there to the other line, and I throw it all down in the other line. I go right through there. I get to the security, the little X-ray thing. They've already secured all, checked all my bags and stuff. And the guy's like, okay, put your hands above your head, And I was wearing my raincoat, you know what I mean, the whole time. I was wearing my raincoat the whole time. So anyway, needless to say, I did the whole X-ray thing, and he says, all right, step out. So I step out, and he goes, I'm gonna have to pat you down. And I'm like, okay, whatever, do what you got to do. You know what I mean? So I pick my arms up. He looks at my arms, and he goes, your armpits are sweating. And I'm like, yeah, it's been a long morning. He goes, I don't want to pat you down. He goes, do you got anything on you? I said, no, I left it all at home. So anyway, if you ever want to go through security and not get patted down, just sweat your armpits up pretty good. And they just ask you, do you have anything? But anyway, so all dry. So, but we got over there and we got on the plane, and it was a really good week. I enjoyed the construction better than I have any of the other construction. And you got to understand, I built the first church on that property. They were underneath the carport. We built bathrooms on that property. We went back and put the floor on the bigger church, because before we could make it back after 2 years, they had outgrew the first church and they needed a bigger church. So we went and built the bigger church, and then we put the walls on the church, and then we put the roof on the church. And so we still hadn't made it, into the community to build a house yet. And that's the first January I went. We had went during the summer, and we had done Vacation Bible School for like 400 and 500 kids. And I came back from the trip, and Roy, the one that kind of puts our trips together, he goes, what do you think? And I said, I don't think my skills were utilized. You know what I mean? I said, I felt like I was just herding cats that week. That's pretty much what I did. I said, I want to come and build something. And he said, you want to build something? I said, yeah. I said, how much it costs to build a house? And the houses, like I said, they're like storage sheds, basically. The block houses we were building this time were a little bit bigger than a lot of times what they build. And he said, about $5,000. I said, well, I want to go and build a house. So the plan was that first January to build a house. Well, we didn't. We built a church, and then we built bathrooms, and then we built a bigger church, and we still hadn't built a house. So Roy's like, this year you're going to get to build a house. So we got to work in 3 houses this year. I knew Brian. I knew his house because, like I said, we had poured the concrete in his house back when his mom was alive. And so I didn't know him. But the other 2 families, I didn't know who they were. I was just going over there to build some houses. It didn't really matter who they were for, you know. And the first house that we started the concrete, the foundation. But then the next day, I got assigned to hang the sheetrock in the house. It was already built house, but it needed sheetrock to keep it cool during the summertime and also to keep it warmer during the wintertime. They were in their winter season. And that first day, we got part of the sheetrock up. We didn't get all the, I mean, it's not a big house, but we had to put these metal studs, and it was flimsy metal, and it was just some aggravating stuff. But we got over top of the kids' bedroom done, and part of the living room area. Their living room and their kitchen is pretty much one room, and then they've got 2 little small bedrooms that are divided up by like half walls. So I mean, it's not a very big place, but we were able to get sheetrock above the kids' bedroom. And when we went back over there the next day, the dad was telling me, he said, yeah, my kids said they slept good last night because they didn't get cold. You know what I mean? For us, it was in the 60s. We wouldn't got cold anyway, but for them, they had gotten cold. So that was pretty cool, I thought. You know what I mean? That those kids slept better that night because we had got over there and put up some studs and hung some sheetrock. And then, of course, then I find out that the other house we're working in is some of the youth leaders at the church that we had been ministering to for a long time. And like I said, they had been married. Was their kid was 5 years old, right? Their kid was 5 years old, and living with his parents. He said when he bought that house, I think when he built his house, the house, I talked to the husband, the father of the boy whose house we worked on, and when I asked him, he said when he first built his house, it was like 20 by 20, and I think last year they added on to it a little bit last year. So you imagine 20 by 20, you know what I mean, house for you, your wife, your son, his wife, and a 5-year-old, you know. So I'm pretty sure they were excited, huh? And that's right, they do have another child. So, I mean, I'm sure they were excited to get out of the house. And I know they were because they shared about it at the testimony service. And we're really appreciative of all that we had done. And I told Roy before we came back, I said, next year, if they don't have their house done, I want to finish their house. You know, if they can I hope they get it done before we get back. But if they don't, I want to go down there and make sure we finish that house. So to me, being able to go into the house, I mean, we have poured concrete floors. Which that's a big thing. I mean, that's a big thing when you walk around on dirt floors, you know, and we go in there and roll the sides up from the metal that they pulled from the junkyard and pour a concrete floor. I mean, that's a big lift in standard of living right there, you know what I mean, to do concrete. But it's basically we roll in there, we do a concrete, and we jump on another house and pour another concrete pad and stuff like that. So I think it was a little bit different this year to really be able to spend some time with the families and work on their houses and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the ministry. I got to preach in San Jose. Last year I preached in Orange Walk. The difference is San Jose church, you don't got to have an interpreter. The Orange Walk church, you do have an interpreter. So I was excited not to have an interpreter there. But got to, you know, once I found out, because I asked the pastor there, Mike, I said, Mike, who is working with your youth? Who's working with your students? Because the whole idea of us going down here this year, or at least the teaching part of it, was to focus on discipleship. They wanted us to speak on discipleship and those kind of things. So I asked him, I said, who's working with your students here? Because many of you know I'm a youth pastor at heart. You know, I love pastoring, but I was a youth pastor for 20-some years, you know. So I really got to spend some time with some of their youth leaders and sort of talk to them about some things that I'd done in my years of youth ministry things that I thought were effective in impacting and discipleship, and some things that I thought they could implement. And they asked me some questions, and I told them if they needed some materials, I've got some materials. I'd figure out how to get it over there to them. So that was good too. That was good too. So I got to go fishing my first time. I've been wanting to go fishing for the last 10 years in Belize. The what? It's not about the fish. It's about the fellowship. We had a lot of fellowship on that boat. But it was a good time. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to next year, Lord willing. And I just want to encourage you, you don't know. It's kind of like Melissa was talking about. You hear people talk about it, and you see pictures, and it's different. It's different when you actually get to go. And I'm really thankful that our church makes it so affordable. We never know what the fundraising is going to look like. We never know how much we're going to have to chip out of our pockets, which I'm totally okay with paying out of my pocket to go. But the church is very, very giving and helping us go. And I would just encourage you. It's one thing to live through somebody else's stories and somebody else's pictures, and you just get a drop in the bucket tonight of what we truly experienced there. I would encourage you to go. And you say, well, I don't know what I would do. Well, they'll find something for you to do. You can pick up some block. You can walk with Miss Jane, right? But we had the second church that we built, the bigger church that we built down there. Patrick Hanley went with us, and Patrick was a pastor for a while there, and his wife Charity and their daughter Danielle went that year. Well, no, I think it was Brittany, his one daughter, and then Danielle, Brittany and Charity. Brittany is his daughter. Charity is his wife. They went down there with us the first year, and Patrick went with us. And then the next year, Patrick wasn't able to go, but his wife Charity went, and then their daughter Danielle went, and they were the ones that went again this year with us. But I'll never forget that first year we were down there. And Pat has got a walker. I mean, he uses a walker, and he is out there, that concrete slab, and he's out there with his walker, just walking along the side of that concrete slab and picking up rocks and throwing them into the next to the foundation, kind of filling it in or whatever, And I'm just, there's opportunities to speak, there's opportunities to play games with children. Mr. John went down there, and he's big into sports and stuff like that, so he played basketball and volleyball with the kids. Do what? Yeah, and he did some IT. They had a bunch of Chromebook computers that had been sitting in a closet because nobody knew how to do what needed to be done to get those Chromebooks up and going. We didn't really think about John doing IT work while he was down there, but John ended up getting like 40 of their Chromebooks up and going while we were down there. And so, you just never know what skills you're going to bring to the table that God's going to use. But God's got something for you to do there. We've got something for you to do. Like I said, playing with kids, IT stuff, construction, picking prison ministry. We've done that in a couple of years too. There's if you can't do anything but just take somebody by the hand and pray with them, you know what I mean? There's something for you to do there. So I would just encourage you, think about going, but anyway, so that's all we got, right? So does anybody have any questions about the trip, or I know some of you have heard us speak every year about this, but I think I've been going for like 10 years now, and I probably went, 10, 11, 12 times, something like that. But if you got any questions for any of our team, we're happy to answer them. Yes? Yes. We actually only had, Mike had 2 guys there or 1 guy there? Yeah. Yeah, and some of these guys, like I said, they go to the church. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like here, they roll their sleeves up and help. And the one who's the father I told you that had his son and his wife and and their 5-year-old living with them. He comes to the States, and he works 9 months out of the year in the States, and then he goes back to be with his wife and his kids for 3 months, and then he'll come back to the States and he'll work 9 months, and then he'll go back. And he was over there helping us. I mean, he was over there, he's only home 3 months with his kids and his grandkids and his wife, and he's over there, laying block and throwing block with us. But I mean, I know he's going to miss his son, being in his house when he comes home, but he'd probably be a little excited to let them have their own space too. But he was over there throwing blocks. So yeah, I mean, they have a church family like we do that chips in. So. Yep. 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 So. Yeah. A lot of children, a lot of women, few men, and that's one of the things that sort of shocked me was on Friday nights they have their youth service. You know what I mean? And you've got a lot of these young couples. You know what I mean? They're youth age, but they marry up a little bit different down there than we do here. But I don't know. Getting teenagers to church on a Wednesday night's one thing. They have their youth meetings on Friday nights. You know what I mean? So and they've got a ton of youth and young adults coming to that. So that's exciting stuff. So, anybody else? Any other questions, Mr. Mm-hmm. The schools are English speaking. The national language of Belize is English. So so they only speak English in the schools. So the children now they can speak other Spanish, you know what I mean, but they only speak in English in the schools. You know what I mean? The kids have conversations in Spanish and stuff like that, and that's a little aggravating. I mean, all the people we work with speak English too, but then sometimes it's easier for them to speak in Spanish than it is in English. But they all speak English. But mainly the little kids that aren't school age and the older ones don't really speak English, but most everybody else does. But the Orange Walk Church is a lot more diverse. They've got a lot of older congregation in there, so they do like me to speak with an interpreter. So basically I speak in English and then somebody else preaches my sermon right after me in Spanish. And I tell them every year, I'm like, listen, I said, I understand. I said, some of y'all are going to hear this in English, some of you are going to hear it in Spanish, and some of y'all poor souls are going to hear the same sermon twice this morning. So those that speak English and Spanish get the same sermon twice. But yeah. Miss Jane, did you have something?
I want to say just two quick things. One of the cooks was able to sit with me, and I learned something. When she was in the 2nd grade, her mom took her out of school to help her with the work in the house. And, we take our schools for granted. They have to pay for preschool, elementary school, I guess it's like middle school and then high school. And apart from that, they can't attend. So that's another reason. I get lectured all the time about why I have such a heart for overseas. If you would go to the emergency room anywhere in North Carolina, they're going to take care of you regardless if you have insurance or not. There are countries I go to, they will watch you bleed out and die right there because you didn't have enough to pay for the doctor bill. There's a big difference. Children can get lunch free and breakfast free at school. There are kids who don't have anything to eat. And so that's where my heart hurts. The other thing I learned, one of the ladies that assisted me, she was America. She was amazing, but her husband had a motorcycle accident. And I'm saying this out loud because I'm praying that if I keep saying it, somebody will know how. He's a young man. He shattered his kneecap. They have no knee replacements in that entire country. Now, I'm a partial knee replacement. I've got a half real kneecap and a half fake kneecap. His young wife went to place after place trying to get the right glue to glue the kneecap back together, but a piece came off. So his back is shattered, but he could at least walk if we could get him to America. I'm going to go ahead and say what's on my heart and get him to have a knee replacement surgery and then send him back home. There's organizations that can help do that. I just don't know how to do that. So I'm asking you to pray about that. Maybe you got somebody in your family that's got somebody in your family that's got somebody in your family that works at a hospital. I just feel like if everybody keeps asking the right question, maybe we can get the right answer. So I'm decided to take a stand, and I'm going to keep saying this with anybody who will listen because I know that's what he needs. He is a young man, and he is literally disabled. His spine is not straight anymore. and he's in agony with his knee. And he can't do anything more than an hour or so. So when people ask me, why do I have such a heart for overseas, is because here in America, a child will not go hungry. But overseas, they'll starve to death. Here in America, they can get medical care. But overseas, they die all the time. And I have a heart both for my home and also for my home that I think about, other ones I meet. So if y'all would just continue to pray for and seek how we could get his knee fixed. We can't fix his back, but at least then he can walk. There you go, sorry.
And Mirica, his wife, she does like nails. She paints nails and stuff like that, and she sells stuff to sort of help pay their expenses and stuff, because he can't work, and that's big. That's major role reversal there in that culture. You know what I mean? The men are supposed to work, and that's why you don't have a lot of the men in church, because they feel like if I go to work, then that's all I'm supposed to do, and that's all I got to worry about. So they kind of leave it at there. But and he's building furniture. He's trying to build furniture out of his house so that he can sell it, and feel like he's contributing a little bit to that. And that's another thing, child sponsorship. It costs, I think, $450 to send a little kid to school, and I think it's upwards of $650, I think, to send a high schooler to school, I think. Yeah. So if you can help with, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So if you want to help with child sponsorship, we can certainly do that. And I like that, because you have a face going to your money. You know what I mean? It's not, we do child sponsorship through our home. You know what I mean? And you see a face, and you hope that's where the money's going. Well, here every bit of it's going straight to that person, that child. So, did you have something, Miss Jane?
Daniel and I are trying to find somebody to partner with us. We can do 50% if somebody else could do 50% on either high school. Probably the younger child, we could probably pull that. But I don't make any income. And Daniel had to work overtime even so I could go on this mission trip. So if anybody wanted to go partners with us to help an older child get to go to school, because if somebody doesn't sponsor them, they don't get to go to high school. And their children are their greatest investment in that country, and that country is not seeing the fulfillment that they could. They're brilliant children.
We'll do half. We'll do half. Anybody else? I'll ask her about it later. Anybody else? Any other questions? It's a great trip. I mean, it's an awesome trip. We do have fun. We laugh a lot. We eat well. The ladies cook for us. Ladies cook lunch and supper for us, and it's just a good time. We were going into people's homes, but then our group started off with like 7. And then I think this year we had 18 on our team. Last year we had 21 or 22 on our team, 23. So it really became a little overwhelming for us to go to a home and have them feed us. Even though we provided them with the money to buy the food, they still had to cook it, and it's just a large thing. So we actually have ladies that cook us lunch at the church and supper at the church. And we have people from the church that come eat with us. I told them, I said, let's not go into their houses. Let's have them come eat with us. And so that's what we're trying to do now. So this thing's always changing. It's always changing. We're working on perfecting it. So, and like Miss Jane said about the fruit, that was an interesting thing. John and Bree went into schools, and they're kind of into eating healthy and stuff like that. And they see kids walking around with junk, and they went and used their own money, went and bought a bunch of fruit, and brought into the school so the kids could have something healthy to snack on or whatever. And some of these kids have never had a strawberry. Never had a strawberry. Didn't know what a strawberry was. Didn't know you're supposed to not eat the green part of it. You know what I mean? Next year, one of the things we talked about as a team, like I said, it's constantly evolving, is adding a little bit of money to our trip so that we can buy fruit down there to pass out at these schools, so the kids can get to try strawberry. So, do what? Without getting the green part, yeah. Yep.
Agriculture is, what sort of things can they grow? Do they have gardens?
They do. I mean, they grow squash, right? They grow squash. They grow cucumbers. Mangoes, yeah. They have bananas, they have coconuts. They started plantains. They started doing some kind of coconut tree, but it's like short. You know what I mean? It's a dwarf coconut tree, which, you know, if you got to grab coconuts off a tree, it's a whole lot better to be this high than ceiling height, you know. But I don't know what else agriculture-wise. The Mennonites down there do a lot of stuff. So.
Know a little bit about that, so I'll stick on that. So as far as their agriculture, about 30 or 40 years ago, the Mennonites produced about 89% of all the food that they ate in the whole country, and now it's significantly less. A lot to do with their agriculture is becoming more innovative, and they're able to do things in more areas where the Mennonites had the manpower and the money to do that, and they didn't. And a part of it is, and this is kind of the sad point, part of the Mennonite culture, just like everything, the young kids don't want to do what their parents did. So a lot of them don't even want to be a part of any of that stuff. They don't want to build the ships. They don't want to do anything. So a lot of the Mennonite culture is kind of falling away a little bit. But that gives the Belizeans opportunities to pick up where, you know, there's holes in the market. But they do, as far as exporting, they do mainly sugar, and then they have the new, I can't remember what they call it, but it's a solid coconut, so there's no water or anything in it. It's like a spongy coconut all the way through, and you can like scoop it out with so that's a new crop that they started last year. Then they're starting to export that out. And they also do up north, up near Mexico, they export vanilla out in certain parts of South America and things like that. But that's the main thing there. And part of the problem with the schooling is if you don't go to college, it's either you're a banker or you work in construction or you work in the fields, and that's it. If you go to college, then there's a little bit of opportunity for you. But I mean, you got a hard time if you don't go to college. It's a real tough life if you don't go to college. That's why sponsorship is such a big deal. Education is such a big deal. So.
And they only get a certain bit of land, each person there. If you're from there, they give you this piece of land, and that's your land.
Yeah, but they can also, the government can also take back what they want to. One of my good friends, Ramiro, down there, the government, the prime minister's trying to take some of his farming land. He's got sugar cane, it's family land, and the prime minister's trying to take it. So he was part of the time down there dealing with the courts trying to fight that. And I asked him, I said, what's the prime minister going to do with your land? He goes, well, they'll use it for government or he'll just keep it for himself, you know. And I'm like, well, that's nice of him. But oh yeah, toys. I mean,
we went to the Mennonite thing called the shipyard, and there's toys that we can buy from there, and it can be given to kids. Kids have never had a toy. And so our $1,000, I'm just using the number that's in my head, is $2,000 to them, and they can go in and get the inexpensive toys. And I've already got one person I've already communicated with and already said, let's make a deal here, because as soon as I saw there was toys and I knew how to get those toys in country, that was a deal done. I already committed to $1,000 worth of toys. I just got to figure out how to do a yard sale somewhere real soon so I can have the money for those toys. But I'm telling you, they don't have toys. And I'm not talking about fancy, guys. I'm talking about one little toy that fits in the palm of your hand. So I'm fighting for this. So anybody that needs, let me do some work for you, let me know.
And we do buy Hot Wheels and stuff like that and try to give the kids some Hot Wheels because we can get those down there. And John brought a bunch of soccer balls. The one little kid's house we were working, he's 5 years old, and like Miss Jane said, I didn't see any toys in his house. And we went to move the bed so that we could do the sheetrock, and I found the soccer ball, and I was like, oh, that's a soccer ball. It's flat. We can pump it up. He goes, oh, no, it's got a hole in it. And I said, we got some soccer balls at the church. So I brought him a soccer ball the next day. I was like, there's your son, a soccer ball that actually will hold air. So, but it's a whole lot different. It's a whole lot different culture there. So anybody else? Any other questions?
Children here in the United States don't know how bad things is to not have, all they're wanting is something, a toy or, you know, whatever, and then their parents have to distribute them out somewhere to a yard sale.
Yeah.
They have so many.
Yeah.
and they don't have anything.
Yeah, yeah. But we can't, I mean, it's hard to we can't bring all of that stuff into the country. You know what I mean? We do have to buy some of it. I mean, we can bring in toothbrushes, and we brought in, nobody mentioned the socks and okay.
So one of the things that we did was we brought a bunch of socks and T-shirts and underwear and things like that. And to the point that you were just making, they started giving out socks. And there was there were several, but the one boy stuck out in my mind really heavily because when you gave it to him, he danced like someone just gave him a PlayStation just to have a pack of socks. And he was like jumping up and down, had the biggest smile on his face, and all of them were like that. But this one little boy, I mean, he come like 6 feet off the ground, jumping up and down over socks. And our kids would be like, socks? Like, where's the toys? Right. And so, but we were able to give, how many, was it? There's like 8 bags of things. There was a ton of clothes that we gave away. And everybody, I think it ended up being like 40 kids. Everybody got a pair of socks, underwear, and T-shirts. So it was good. A lot of y'all donated. That little link we sent out of the Amazon link, if you purchased anything, y'all gave directly to a child. That way, if you donated to that, you just shipped it to Roy, and Roy had to bring it in, and then we gave it out to everybody. So, but no, it was good.
We used to collect that stuff, and then we just didn't know what we were going to get. So this year we set up the Amazon link so that we knew we got this many shirts and this much underwear and stuff like that. So we got, like I said, this trip's always changing. You know what I mean? We're just trying to make it more efficient and make it more effective. And so, and I mean, they really did good with us this year as far as customs. I think it cost $120 US to bring in all the stuff that we brought in. I mean, that was pretty. And I mean, once again, you come through customs and I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to what you pay. It's just whatever they feel like charging you. If you get somebody nice, you don't have to pay a whole lot. If you get somebody that, whatever. So, yeah, it was like $120 to bring in everything. And Miss Jane brought in a lot of stuff and a lot of candy. American candy, they like American candy. If they get a Snickers bar, I mean, that's a big treat to them once again to have a Snickers bar. Like a fun size Snickers bar. I mean, it's just like you said, our kids are totally different. But yeah, well, I went to come through the customs one time, and I had a bag full of stuff, and the guy looks at me and goes, "Well, how much does this stuff cost?" It was free. It was free to me. Somebody gave it to me, and I'm giving it away, right? It didn't cost nothing. It's not going to be sold either. It's going to be given away for free. So, but anyway, anybody else? Any other questions?
I have a question.
All right, Mr. Truman.
You see on TV, these game shows, they give away trips to Belize.
Yes.
And they portray it as being a great vacation spot, great resort, and all this stuff. So now, what part of the country are these people living in?
We went on a road trip to the other end of the island one time to show me some possible other places for us to minister, and I saw one cruise ship there. Now, there are touristy places, but we are not around the touristy places. Yeah, we don't see any cruise ships we don't see any of the touristy places. But there are touristy places there, but we don't go there. Yeah.
Danger Island is a big thing. There's also, Belize is a big diving destination for the Blue Hole. And then they also have the Spanish Lookout or Spanish Fort is another place where you go. There's a lot of beach resort stuff, but inland it's nothing like that. Nothing.
So the part that y'all go to is like a remote part of that country?
It's like a village. It's like a country village.
It is villages, and like I said, when I first started going to there, it was just a lot of the houses were stick houses with metal roofs on them. Now they're starting to get developed. They're starting to get block houses, and they actually have water to their lot. They don't have it to their house, but that's development in that area. And then you go further out, and you still see the stick houses and stuff like that. But we don't like cruise ships and all that stuff. Yes.
I don't have a question. I was going to actually make a comment about the resorts. A lot of these resorts are gated off, and everything is extremely nice. But you go outside that resort, and poverty, it's poverty stricken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we experienced that when my wife and I went on a cruise, and when we got there, everything was gorgeous. But the people were like, second you go beyond that gate, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people, they work in these resorts for money, but they don't get paid anything really. But
A lot of them that comes to the States, the one guy that comes to the States and spends 9 months, he actually does maintenance, but most of those will work for resorts and stuff like that here in the States. So they'll come here, work 9 months, and go back home for 3 months. So, I'm sorry. I don't want to go super long, but if anyone's got any other questions, because I just, to me, this is the big thing. If you're thinking about something, if you're thinking about going, you got a question you want to ask, feel free to ask it. And you can ask us some other time. But anyway, anybody else? All right. I just, once again, thank everybody for going. Lord willing, we'll be back again next January. Lord willing, that's the plan. So.
Well, how was the weather there while you were there?
It was a little bit colder than what it has been when we were there. It was in the high 60s. High 60s, 68, low 70s, which was a little bit colder than it typically is down there for us. Yeah. Like I said, they showed up Sunday night in total audience. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Anybody else? Beautiful weather, especially considering y'all got snow here. So. Huh?
On the boat, you said the boat was standing straight up.
That was the roughest. We went on that fishing boat. That is the roughest fishing boat I have ever been out on. I've never been out on the ocean, deep sea fishing, and you have 10-foot waves. I've just never. That boat got vertical many, many times, and come crashing down. My phone is evidence of that. So, no padding on the seats and a bony behind will do some damage to a phone. I got me another old phone. All right. We'll go on to dismiss. We've been a little bit long tonight, but once again, I don't know how to express just the thanks to the church. So for everything. I guess that's one thing. 2 things I want to express: thanks to the church, and just encourage anybody that's even remotely thinking about going. We start taking deposits in October. So for our plane tickets, so need to know by October if you think you're interested in going. So, see Chris. Chris is the boss. He's in charge. I told him over there this week. Pastor Dave gets to be big chief a whole lot. In Belize, Pastor Dave is little Indian, and I run around going, woo, 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 woo. I drove the truck. I drove more this year than I've ever driven, so we didn't have drivers, so I drove. So let's go, Lord, in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I'd like to thank you for this wonderful night that you've given us. Thank you once again for this trip and the ministry that was done there. Not only the buildings, the physical things that were done, the food that was provided, the clothes that were provided, but the gospel that went out and was received by children and teenagers also, Lord God. We just thank you for that, Lord God. And we just look to you for the future, Lord God. I pray that this thing would be all about you. It would be what you desire it to be, and we would just be obedient servants in it. And we just love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.